Hi guys, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 7. So as always, we're going to start off with a little plot summary. So first off, Macbeth is alone in his castle and he's contemplating the plans that he and Lady Macbeth have to kill the king. And he has a soliloquy where he goes through all of the reasons why he should not kill Duncan. And by the end of the soliloquy, he is absolutely decided that it's not going to happen. And so then when Lady Macbeth arrives in the scene, he's very firm with her and he says, well, we will proceed no further in this business. And he is very, very clear that they're not going to go ahead with killing the king for a multitude of reasons. Lady Macbeth isn't that thrilled by this, and so she uses a variety of tactics to get him back on side. One of those tactics is suggesting that he is not courageous, that he is actually being cowardly, that he is too scared to do what needs to be done in order to become king. She also insults his masculinity, tying those two ideas together, courage and masculinity, being values that were really, really important at the time, particularly in light of the kind of gender stereotypes and traditions. She also uses a different tack, which is to comment on loyalty. She talks about how loyal she is to him, what she would do if she had promised. And so she questions whether or not he's being loyal to her by going back on their decisions. And ultimately, this works. And by the end of the scene, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are completely and utterly decided that they are going to go and commit this horrific, treasonous crime of regicide. Okay. So as I said before, the scene begins with a soliloquy. I have done a full video on this soliloquy with detailed annotations. So if you want that level of detail and specificity, do please go and have a little look at my other video. For now, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what's in this soliloquy and the different reasons that he comes up with for why he shouldn't kill Duncan. So the first section that we're looking at in the soliloquy is he's really, really thinking about consequences. So he's thinking to himself, if he could kill Duncan without anything coming back to him, and actually just that death in itself would wrap everything up altogether, he's like, I'd do it, and I'd do it quickly, I'd get it sorted out. He thinks here about whether or not he would risk his afterlife for his existence on Earth, and he actually comes to the conclusion that he would jump for life to come. He would risk going to hell to get those earthly pleasures, but only if there wouldn't be any earthly consequence either. And he realizes in this section here that actually that's not likely. The idea that nothing would come back to him, he's basically saying, if I go around killing people, of course someone is going to come back and kill me. So that's what he means here, that we teach bloody instruction, being taught returns to plague the inventor. So it will come back on him. He then starts talking more specifically about Duncan. So he says, he's here in double trust. So he's there trusting him in more than one way, in two ways. So one of the reasons that Duncan trusts him is because, they're related, they're cousins. It's not just about him being a loyal servant to the king. They're actually related by blood. And then you've also got the fact that he is the host of this group, and so he should be doing everything he can to protect him. We then move on to Duncan's actual attributes, and he points out that one, he's a great king, and he's a kind king. He's also a virtuous king, and it's these virtues, it's these kingly graces that are kind of shouting out against the murder. And he uses all of this wondrous language, and like I said, there is a full annotation of this, but these incredible metaphors and similes describing how loud the virtues will cry out in the name of Duncan to sort of put off the murder. And then he also talks about the impact that if he were to do it, then like the entire world would grieve, the horrid deed would blow in every person's eye, that there would be so many tears, there's so much grief that it would actually drown out nature, it would drown out the wind. So he's recognizing in this moment that killing Duncan would have such an enormous impact on not just him, but absolutely everybody. The soliloquy ends with the focus on the only thing that is giving him reason to do this is his ambition. And he even recognizes in this moment that ambition could actually prove to be difficult. It might not actually get him where he wants to go. It might lead him to fall. Wonderful foreshadowing, because that's exactly what happens, because as you know already from previous videos, his ambition is his tragic flaw. It's his hamartia. So that's just a quick run through of the soliloquy. Like I said, there's more detail on the other video should you want a line by line analysis of language structure and form. But for now, let's get on with the rest of the scene. When Lady Macbeth arrives into the scene, Macbeth is very, very strong with her. He says, "We will proceed no further in this business." Note the modal verb of certainty here, suggesting he's absolutely decided, and note the euphemistic language in this business. We've also got an extended metaphor being used here. If you actually look at this verb here, he says, "I've bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss." So it's a reminder again, isn't it, of the idea of status and titles being like clothes that was introduced all the way down in Act 1, Scene 3, where he says, you know, "Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" So he's recognizing here the golden opinions, note the adjective, suggesting kind of wealth and luxury. He's recognizing that Duncan is giving him a better life, and he's like, this should be enough for now. But Lady Macbeth isn't willing to take that. And here we have a wonderful example of personification. She asks in this interrogative, "Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it now to look so green and pale of what it did so freely?" So this metaphor here, joined up with the personification, it's using the imagery of being drunk and being hungover, and she's saying this is like someone who makes a promise when they're drunk and then wakes up the next day feeling sick and is regretful and remorseful. So she's asking, was this all artifice? Was this all fake? But at the same time, note the way that she uses language to suggest that he is weak. So for example, adjectives like green and pale, connoting sickness and illness. It makes Macbeth sound weak. You also have the fact that she's using rhetorical questions here, so it's quite intense in terms of the way that she's speaking to him, challenging his ideas and views in this way. Okay, another little moment. I said at the beginning that she uses loyalty and her loyalty to Macbeth as a driving force, and that's what's happening here. Sometimes people just get completely caught up in the horror of the language, and that is true, but the underlying message is one of loyalty. So she uses this maternal imagery. So when she talks about giving suck, she's talking about breastfeeding. And again, that's backed up here when she says that she knows how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. Another reminder that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they have had a baby, and that baby has died. That makes this even more emotive. So she's basically saying here that if she was breastfeeding her child, this close maternal, innocent kind of picture and image, she would kill that child if Macbeth had asked her to. So note the way that we've got this juxtaposition between the innocence of the smiling babe and then the violence of dashed the brains out. Okay, so you've got that juxtaposition between maternal imagery and emotive, violent language, okay, in this moment. But the point of it is this line here, "Had I so sworn as you have done to this." Don't mistake this and think, oh, Lady Macbeth wants to kill her children because she's so evil. No, she's saying, I would do the worst thing imaginable if I had promised it to you. That's how far her loyalty to Macbeth goes. I like this little bit because it shows Macbeth's reliance on Lady Macbeth. Note here we've got shared lines, Okay, so shared line is when what should be, if you see, we fail to carry out the meter rather than just starting from the beginning. You'll notice that it's staggered, and it's because this and this are the same line. So when you have shared lines between characters, it's normally to do with either their relationship, or it could be to do with pace. So it could be like lots of interruptions, or it could be a sign of togetherness. It's a little bit of both here, because you see the doubt in Macbeth's lines when he says, if we should fail, so little interrogative, doubt, but what happens? And then Lady Macbeth answers in an exclamative. We fail, like absolute disbelief and shock that Macbeth could even think it. And then she uses a metaphor to back up why they won't fail. She says, screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. So this metaphor is a great metaphor. The sticking place, imagine an archery image, or like a bow and arrow. You can't quite see it with my hand. But in that moment where you pull back the arrow, the sticking place is that little bit, that little click, before you let go and fire your arrow. So it's saying, like, keep your courage ready to go, keep it there poised all the time and will not fail. Note the way that we've got this repetition again, fail, 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 but here it's negated. We will not fail. And again, modal verb of certainty, we will versus should, which suggests a little bit more doubt. Okay, last little bit of the theme. This is Macbeth. Macbeth says, away and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. Another cracking moment where we're talking about appearance and reality. Fair is foul, foul is fair. So first off, it's the rhyme and couplet. Okay, we know that Shakespeare likes to end his scenes with rhyme and couplets or speeches. It normally suggests something really important, and this one is definitely the case. We've got nice personification, the idea about mocking time, that time can be mocked. And time will be mocked with this idea of the fairest show. Note that superlative adjective there, fairest, like the best version. So he's saying we are going to bide our time by pretending to be good, by pretending to be fair. And whilst that's happening, the false face must hide what the false heart doth know. Note again, we've got that fricative alliteration. Okay, so for there, and then fairest and false. Note that juxtaposition between those two adjectives, the fair and the false, and again that repetition of false and false. So that fricative alliteration ties those words together, but it also creates that really quite harsh and menacing sound one more time. Okay, so coming to the end now. If we just think about our final thoughts, again, what themes are coming up here? Again, that relationship between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is so important. The ideas about masculinity and femininity and how that fits into gender stereotypes. Power and control, so important. We've seen Macbeth as the powerful one, now Lady Macbeth is. And one of the ways that she does this is through her manipulation of his kind of version or his perception of masculinity and what it is to be a powerful man. Always tying into the idea of appearance and reality, again, pretending to be a certain way, hiding that darkness. And what is it that they're hiding? It's evil versus good. Now, the one thing that I will say, sorry about my scheming raccoon, the one thing I will say here, it's so easy just to go down the isn't Lady Macbeth awful route. Yeah, isn't Lady Macbeth horrible to Macbeth? And it is there, but I encourage you to take a more subtle perspective here. Why is she doing all of this? Why is she saying all of this? It is for Macbeth. It is for her partner. There is no evidence in the text that she's doing it for herself. At no point does she say, "Ooh, can't wait to be queen." She goes, "Ooh, Macbeth deserves to be king." So yes, the imagery is dark. Yes, the Jacobean audience would have been horrified to hear her speak in this way, but try not to get too caught up in the, you know, "Ooh, Lady Macbeth, what an evil, horrible woman." Okay, that's it from me. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. If you have any requests, also pop them in the comments. If you're enjoying these videos, please like them, please subscribe so you keep up to date with everything that I am producing for you. But for now, I will just say happy revising.